did you ever think in your life that you would say going to an embroidery class was thrilling? I mean,
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
all right. Well, welcome to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. My guest today is Chloe Albin. Chloe, I'm going to just say hello, welcome, and ask you to tell our guests about yourself because, like I just told you before I hit record, I started with this little area, and now we've got other topics. So, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I wear many hats. If I'm going to prioritize or put them in an order, first and foremost, I'm a dancer, professional dancer. I'm a choreographer. I'm an educator of dance, and I teach kids, teenagers, my peers, and I also run a small business. So that is the embroidery side of things, which first brought you to me.
Which was how I first came across you. Well, let's talk about dancing in that. How did you get started? Because I'm reading your website, and I could I could tease you about something, but we'll wait for a few more minutes.
We can get there. Yeah,
we'll get there. So, how did you get started in dance? Let's go with that.
Yeah, I mean, as a 2-3-year-old was bopping around enough that my parents were like, we should sign her up, see what happens. And it stuck like big time. Okay. And I danced, 3 years old was the first dance class. And then, all through my, school years till I was 18, I got pretty heavily involved. I mean, it'd be like some weeks, minimum of 10 hours a week of outside of, school time hours, like training, competition team and all that stuff. And then I studied dance in college as well, because that is my path. So it's never been a question of like, should I continue this? I was like, no, this is what I love. This is it.
So if you saw me in person, you would understand I have 2 left feet. So dance and Scott don't go together at all. Uh-huh. If I had to make you define your dance,
it's like stylistically.
Stylistic, yeah. Thank you. Help me, not stumble over my words. So stylistically, where's your passion?
Yeah, I mean, so when growing up, I was trained in like tap, jazz, ballet, kind of the 3 main ones. In college, kind of went into modern more. So now I teach all those things still, but I would say like my performance life, that side of things is definitely a hybrid of all of them. Like tap has come into my performance work. I would say if you think about like the type of dancing you see like on a Broadway stage, like more theatrical, like a lot of it is based in jazz. So a lot of my work, I think, lives in that category, but really like that category. And then you add a character to it, or there's like those other levels of performance. But from a foundational level, a lot of my like jazz and ballet training paired with that character work is where I land now. So
acknowledgement here, warnings, ignorant statements coming.
That's okay.
When I think of ballerinas, I think of fairly small, petite, and you're 6 foot tall.
I sure am.
So am I wrong in my perception that ballerinas are small, short in stature?
I would say a little wrong. I think in that realm, like, and that was never my path also. Like there are certain qualities you kind of have to be born with. I never considered going prima ballerina because I liked everything else so much as well. But I think there are some tall ballerinas. I think usually, and again, maybe even what I'm going to say is wrong. I think usually they're a little bit shorter than me though. Like I'm a tall gal, and I don't actually know how many like 6 foot tall ballerinas there are. But I don't think the majority of them. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when did you get your height? Did you get really young, or were you one of those awkward kids like myself that grew 6 inches in a summer? I mean, what?
Yeah. I didn't grow 6 inches in the summer, but it was kind of like a slow and steady. I
Okay.
was always the kid in the back of the school picture, like the tall one, like put her in the
Right.
back,
Uh-huh.
and just kind of the whole way through elementary, middle school, high school. But
Okay.
I think I was 6 foot by the time I was like 15, 16.
Okay.
Probably
All right.
16 is when I kind of
So were your parents
growing.
tall? Are your parents tall?
They'll probably have feelings about what I'm about to say. Yes, they are, but I outgrew them again at about 15. My sweet father says he's 5'10", but I think it's about 5'9", and mom like similar. So
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I outgrew them, and both my brothers are taller than me, so they also surpassed.
All right.
So,
and just to get it out of the way, because we talked about this when we talked on the phone, you did not play basketball. I mean, it was not
correct.
That was not your thing. So we're not gonna,
we're not gonna touch that. That's the biggest pet peeve. No basketball, no volleyball.
No basketball, no volleyball. Did your brothers play sports?
Yeah, they okay. I have two of them, and one brother was also into dance, and so he did that. And then the middle brother was the different brother, so he did a lot of baseball. He ran cross country. He played soccer. So he did that realm, but not me.
Not you. Okay.
No.
All right. So you did all of this from 3 years old all the way through high school. You went to college in dance. Where'd you go to college at?
Yeah, I went to Chapman University down in Orange County.
Orange County. So when I think of Orange County, I think of Disneyland.
Yeah, we were like 15 minutes away from Disneyland, like campus to Disney, which was a sweet deal for a freshman. We were like, ooh, I'm going to splurge on that Disney pass just 1 year. Going there multiple times a week. Like, I lived that life right off the bat.
So how many times have you been? Okay, so this is not Washington State related, but just out of curiosity, how many times do you think you've been to Disneyland?
I mean, that's a hard question. I went a lot in that year with the pass because you want to like get your money's worth. I mean, in that year alone, at least 20 times.
Okay.
But, all right. Yeah, because you'd like finish your schoolwork for that evening and go for like 2 hours and then go back home. So it was never like a marathon day of like, you got to be there the whole day.
Right.
But, it's like little bits here and there. Definitely a perk. Orange County is a kind of a strange place, but Disneyland is there.
So describe what college is like as a theater, or not a theater, as a dance major. Sorry.
Yeah. It's kind of wild because, you're on the main campus for your like sit down at a desk classes. And then you're, riding your bike to the dance studios, and you're in technique classes for minimum of like 6 hours a day, and then you have rehearsals in the evening, and you're writing your papers at night. It's kind of wild. It feels like it lives on its own island, the dance department. And then you have like main campus. So, but you kind of live there. You kind of breathe it, which I loved,
So for you, what was the biggest takeaway from your college experience then?
Yeah. Honestly, like, that is a hard one. I think if I'm going to like get really general, like the biggest takeaway is probably like leaving home and going somewhere else to pursue this thing, like wondering if I was even good at it, or if it was still going to make sense outside of my bubble here. But I guess so the biggest takeaway is like, yeah, I do love dance as much as I thought I did, when I was leaving high school, and kind of just learning what the grind is.
And where did you, bouncing around here, and where did you go to high school?
Yeah, I went to Inglemore High School in Kenmore. So not too far from where I sit right now, but just
not too far.
A little hop, skip, and a jump north.
So when I think of, theater, and by connection to that, dance, I don't necessarily think of Seattle as being, I think of Broadway, New York, maybe Chicago, Los Angeles. Seattle doesn't fall in. Once again, I don't know what I'm talking about. How is the Seattle dance scene?
We're definitely on the map in a way that was different maybe like 20 years ago.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to move back home, even though
Okay.
at the time I was like, oh, is this the right choice? Like, what is there in Seattle? So that was kind of my mission,
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what was here and if it would sustain me. And there's a lot going on. I would say more in the modern contemporary realm. I definitely did some like kind of wild durational works that are maybe a little more seen as strange to folks, who
Well,
maybe aren't
okay.
around art
Elaborate
all
on
the
that.
time.
Elaborate.
I mean, I did dances where, I mean, let's see. There was a durational work. It was like 30 minutes long, and it was a marathon of a dance. And at the end, like, there was whipped cream, and there were like there was water, and there was like, it was like, what is happening? But I loved it. I mean, like, I kind of went through like really being into this like durational, like, okay, what does it take to like go on this journey and not just go perform, with one idea in mind, like kind of your experience is evolving as you're performing. And that's like, I mean, a very cool thing. I do less of that now, but there's a lot of that. I think Seattle is like, people are coming here from everywhere for dance, and I'll be the first to say, like, there's probably a lot of people making work here right now that I don't know about. In the past couple of years with the pandemic, I'm like, I actually don't know what the shape of the dance community is here exactly right now. It's like very hard to tell. But in my world, I have a couple choreographers who I will do anything for. Like, I will work for them always.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my heart, oh wow, and my dog just left on my lap. Hi, bud. My heart is definitely very much in like the burlesque and drag community now.
Okay.
And there's a lot of fiercely talented and smart dancers in that world. So that's kind of where I am now. But I think there's a lot of stuff going on here between, you have Fifth Avenue, you have musical theater stuff, you have more like modern contemporary, you have new choreographers. I think it's a great city for new folks who are just like looking to figure out like, what am I doing? Like, here's some dancers who like might be willing to jump in. It's kind of how I got my start.
That's how you got your start.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, how did you gravitate towards the burlesque and the drag genres?
I mean, it's kind of a wild story. It really is like a beautiful domino effect from like my beginning days here. I like one of the first choreographers I had worked with in Seattle. Like, I was, at one of the dance studios here, professional dance studios. I was early on. This is right after I graduated. I was mopping floors at like 6:30 in the morning to get free classes, so I could, so I was there all the time, mopping floors and cleaning, so I could take class for free, but also so I could see who was around, like who's in here, who's like making stuff, So I met someone, a choreographer at that time, and then fast forward, like, I guess like just a couple of years, 2.5 years later, I got a text message from a drag queen who I at the time had never heard of, and now it's extremely embarrassing to say that I had never heard of this person. But BenDeLaCremes, who is a Seattle talent and amazing performer, texted me saying, "Hey, I got your number from," this is the said choreographer from like that, years before, and they said that you'd be a good fit for this project. I need to audition dancers, and the show starts in 3 weeks, and would you be interested? And I, at the time, was like kind of going through it. It was a low point, like some gigs hadn't worked out, and I was like, yeah, I will take that. And then, that cast those are some of my closest friends now. Like, that show and that moment really it's changed my life, like truly. Okay. So that was in 2017.
What show was that?
Yeah, it's Beware the Terror of Gaylord Manor. So this is a show written and produced by BenDeLaCremes, and it premiered in 2017 at ACT Theater in downtown Seattle. Okay. And we do it every year. I mean, we haven't done it for 2 years now because of our sweet little pandemic situation that we're in. Right. But the plan is to bring it back this year. If anyone's listening and they're fans, that is like TBD though, in terms of details, because we live in a world that's a little like to be determined at all times.
Everything's got an asterisk next to it. every
Yeah.
event.
So, yeah. So we did 2017, 18, and 19. So we've done it 3 years, and we
Okay.
usually do like, it's like we do like 30 shows in the month of October. So it's like every week we are in there, and it's a fabulous campy show. There's so much like beautiful dancing and acting, and the set is stunning. So that show, highly recommend for everyone listening.
All right.
It's amazing. I am very proud of that show and honored to be a part of it. But that's how that started, my work with BenDeLaCremes and with the drag and burlesque communities.
All right. I really don't like these questions that I'm about to ask, because I ask them to most every, and here's the problem. Here's why I don't like them. Because everyone has to put such a big, like, well, because of COVID.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because of COVID, and it's like, so let's, as best we can.
Yeah.
Let's pretend it doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
So you're saying that the dance community in Seattle is remember, folks, COVID doesn't exist in this. The dance community is thriving and strong.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's, it's definitely evolving. I will say that because this city is so expensive, we've lost a lot of very valuable dance spaces and I know that we're pretending we're in a moment where we're not going to talk about COVID, but that is a reality that the landscape is shifting, even though it is like there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Okay.
In this
because
time.
the Seattle market for housing is crazy.
Yeah.
It is. Seattle has its sets of challenges. We're not here to talk poorly about Seattle.
Yeah.
But commercial spaces, if you can't use them as they're designed because people can't come into them, it's hard to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
For all genres. I love music, and so all the music venues that are struggling mightily and musicians that are struggling mightily, even though I said this didn't exist, we're going to have to acknowledge it.
I know.
But at the time of recording this, it's February of 2022. I think we're all cautiously optimistic that life is going to begin to have some structure and normalcy to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you see? What's your prognostication about dance, the future of dance in Seattle in 2022?
I feel like it's really exciting right now. I think that people are willing to take some more risks, just like in what they're choosing to make. Like it's that moment, I think collectively that we're going through, everyone in their own way, but kind of realizing like, oh, if this is the thing I want to make or do, not questioning that and like just going for it, even if it flops. Right. I think we have to flop. We have to flop to continue to go forward. But I think there's a lot to be excited about this year. I think about all my creative friends, and everyone has shows and gigs, and you're navigating this time, but the arts community is so malleable and has really been obviously hit hard in this time. So everyone is so hungry to just do the thing that they love, and it's a lot of work right now. It's more work than usual right now, but I'm very optimistic about it. The work that I've seen, in the past few months, it's exciting. I think this is a good year. It's like, I know a couple things that are coming up that I'm like, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we're in it. Like people are making things. They're not just waiting, which is good.
But before we hit the button,
yeah,
you mentioned you'd just seen a show at the Fifth Avenue.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was it? How was the experience?
I mean, I love the Fifth Avenue. I haven't been in there since it was like early February 2020. So right before, it was when, COVID was a little glimmer and we kind of knew about it, but
this won't last.
This won't last. So it's been a couple of years. But no, to be in a theater with a full audience, witnessing this, massive spectacle of a show, it was Beauty and the Beast. If anyone in that cast is listening to this, y'all are amazing. And thank you for that work. But I had some friends in it. So just to see them again, thriving and doing the thing that we've been waiting for years now. It was amazing.
Yeah, I was just deciding whether or not to purchase tickets for a large concert in Seattle coming up. And I was like, I ended up opting out. I ended up just saying at this point, I'm just not quite. If I lived in Seattle, I'd probably be willing to put up with it all, but to drive from Wenatchee, hotel, all the,
it's a
honestly,
whole thing.
it just sounded daunting, a little more daunting than I was quite ready for, I guess. But
what venue would that have been?
Would have been at the Climate Change.
Okay, cool.
Change, yeah.
I haven't been in there yet.
I haven't been there yet either, and nor will I go anytime soon. It looks like.
Right.
But I ended up deciding not to. At least at this point, I might. Who knows? I might break down. So, I'm scrolling through your website as we talk, which is why I'm kind of randomly, looking at a bunch of show photos here and some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So you list yourself as an educator and choreographer for youth and teens. Let's transition to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, I love teaching. I teach in a couple different ways. So I teach at a dance studio, and my youngest student is 2 years old, and that we're like doing creative movement and just like moving around together. And then my older students are like, seniors in high school. And so it's that whole range. But it's like, I've been teaching, I guess, for like 6 years now, and more so right now than I ever have before in my life, simply because there haven't been as many shows, so I've leaned into the teaching and learned a lot. It's been a very valuable time. But I my kids do competitions, so I choreograph dances that they compete, and then I work with high schools in the area, and I choreograph musicals for theater departments. So I'm doing both of those things right now.
Walk me through that process of choreographing for a high school.
Oh, it's so fun. When you walk into a room, I think theater kids are some of the most like special kids. Like high school is a weird time for me, like I didn't really have a strong voice, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I feel like these kids that I work with in these theater departments, they just have such a clear sense of self, or at least they're like really putting an outward like presentation of like, this is what I'm doing. And it is so amazing to be in a room with kids who they all want to be there, and they're all ready to work. And now not all of them have experience in theater. Some of them are baby freshmen, and this is their first thing. Some of them have never done a step touch anything in their life, so no dancing. But some of them have danced before. And so you kind of walk in and you have to navigate. I always tell the kids, I'm like, listen, like my job here is not to give you movement or choreography to make you feel like you can't do it. Like my goal here is to see where you're at and to give you things that you feel strong doing and that you feel confident doing and that you're excited to do. Like that's my job. So, kind of learning really quick, looking at a room of like 32 teenagers looking at you with varying degrees of comfort or excitement. Some are like, they know what's up, and some do not know what they have gotten themselves into. And so you kind of have to navigate that and really like bring them all in. But it's really great. I love it. I love seeing kids kind of discover like, oh, I can do some dancing. Like I didn't know that, and I really do think everyone can dance. It's like, you kind of have to take that leap and trust.
How long are you typically involved with a production? How long does it take you to, choreograph? Are you there through the entire time that the school is doing it? Or are you there at the beginning helping them learn, what they're going to do?
Yeah, usually every process is a little different. In past years, maybe I'll like I'll start rehearsals with them in like February, and maybe the show's in like the first week of May. And usually, like it takes a while to set all the choreography, but I usually still continue to go in the final weeks of rehearsal, and I go to the shows. But right now, the process I'm in right now, we started, I guess that was the first week of January. And we were a little delayed because we had to go virtual, the high school, we had to navigate some stuff with COVID, but we're rehearsing in person, and they open, I think, in mid-March. So that's a quicker turnaround.
Okay.
And we're doing a musical that's very dance heavy. So we are like charging full speed ahead. But I see them like about 5 hours a week, 2.5 hours each on 2 days. And that's, yeah, we get it done, but it's a hustle. It's a quick process for sure.
So you're involved from the day not the day, but the first day that the kids are on at the theater with the school. You're involved from then until the end. Mm-hmm. But you said 5 hours a week, correct?
Yeah, about 5 hours a week.
So how does one get a job like that? I mean, you're not a school teacher, so I mean, you're not at XYZ school district. How does one find those opportunities, and how do those opportunities find you?
I mean, it's a little serendipitous. I mean, I feel like almost everything I feel like that is my life boils down to like who you know. And so sure. The first musical I choreographed was actually on my old high school. So my youngest brother I think had just graduated at that time, but he had been involved in drama, and the drama teacher who I never had time for drama when I was in high school because I was dancing. Literally, I was always dancing. So, but that drama teacher knew me because of my brother. And so when she was looking for a choreographer, what was that? I guess that was 2016. She reached out to me through my brother and was like, hey, would your sister want to do this? And I, of course, was like, sure. Like I had never choreographed a musical for high school, hadn't really dabbled in any of that, but I'm obsessed with musicals. Let me tell you, since I was like 10, I mean, my dream, if anyone asked like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Blah, blah, blah. It was like to be on Broadway. And all my favorite movies from childhood were musicals. Like, so when this came up, right, it wasn't too far-fetched, like, oh, would Chloe want to do a musical? Like, absolutely. So I did that, and then I choreographed on that high school again. So it's Inglemoor High School another year. And then this year I'm at a different high school because a student of mine who is involved in this drama program had mentioned to me, this was back in the fall, she was like, oh, like our drama teacher is looking for a choreographer. Oh my gosh, what if it was you? And they were doing Chicago, and that's like a dream. That'd be a dream, that's such a fun one. That is so dance heavy. So I said, yeah, like, here's my email. Like, let's
talk.
Pass it on to your teacher. And yeah, so that's kind of how that happened. Is I just followed through, and this teacher is amazing. We're a great team. And so so I'm diving into it. Yeah. A totally different school this year, but I think that's just kind of how it works. It's like, you meet people once you're doing a thing, then you're like, oh, and you're the teacher at that school, or like, oh, you do that. So, I'm definitely interested in continuing doing this. It's a fun, like, post Christmas, like all high schools do their musical at this time of year. Like, I mean, maybe I'm saying that too broad, but I think most do their musical in the spring. So it's musical time. I would love to always do a musical. Yeah.
Well, let's transition out of your dance and choreography, modeling. How did you get started in that? I
mean, like I'm not signed with anybody. That is like on the list of like, oh, that'd be fun. Like that'd be a nice thing to add, like another stream of income.
Sure.
But I mean, I have modeled for different, like I know a lot of photographers, the dance world and photography. I don't know, everything kind of overlaps. So I've met some folks through dance, and them taking photos of me dancing, and then we've done like, I've done some wild shoots, like underwater shoots. I've done like full body paint, like gold shoots. I like a lot of like different really cool stuff. And then just like I'm kind of down for anything. I love, talking to a photographer, be like, oh, like what do you want to create? Like of course I have like my headshots, but that's a functional, like you need those. But I kind of like diving into well, what could we make? That kind of mindset with photography. So so I have a couple of people that I work with, usually just kind of for fun. I think a couple of things have ended up in like photography submissions and festivals, but that's been less the focus and more about like,
What has been the most fun photo shoot for you that you've been involved in?
That is a hard one. I mean, the paint one was kind of wild. Like, that was quite a day.
Well, walk me through this whole process. So you full body paint.
Yeah.
How long did that process take?
Well, we had like a spray kind of, like machine. So, and it was like, it's paint that's meant for skin. I'll preface it with that.
It wasn't like you were like going to Sherman-Williams and going,
just like going
this eggshell looks good. Let's roll that on.
Yeah, no. But so most of me, I was like, we spray painted or like, used this like spraying thing to cover most of the area, and then like had to go in and with like a paintbrush.
Right.
But it was full. It was my hair. It was everything.
Wow.
And it really felt like a costume at that point for me.
Right.
Because I had never done a photo shoot like nude, which that was.
Mm-hmm.
But the paint, I was like, oh, this is a costume.
Right. Right.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
So that was super cool. But with that same photographer, we've done shoots, like I said, underwater. And I think that was really cool to figure out like the timing of like, okay, when you take the shot or how much time you have once you're underneath
submerged
the water. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Those are definitely, I think, the top two.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's with, Joe of Jazzy Photo. He does a lot of work in Seattle, but really cool stuff. He's always like, oh, let's do this. Why not? Right. We work very well together, but yeah, it's fun.
So before we transition to how we first got introduced to you, let's back up, and I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm referring to dance and photography only. Mm-hmm. And warning, this question will come up to you in the next part too. But any failures? Like, hey, this sounds like a great idea, and whoops, it just didn't work.
Yeah. If I'm thinking about photography first, nothing comes to mind right away. Like, I definitely have seen images where I'm like, oh, or if I'm thinking, this is very specific, but if I was doing a shoot and I was like, oh, this pose definitely is going to be the one. And it's like, definitely not the one. So like within a photo shoot, there are moments that are flopped and like, it's disappointing when something doesn't work out in that way. But I think in the photo shoots as a whole, there are always gems. They're always never the ones that you thought were going to be like the shot. Right. But no complete failures there for me.
Okay. What about with dance though?
With dance?
And I'm not saying this to put you on the spot. I always just think that the creative process, if you don't make mistakes, I don't know that that as an artist is pushing it all that hard.
Yeah.
And I think you learn a ton from mistakes.
Yeah.
So I'm more interested in those awkward lessons that we learn. Like, I thought that this body paint in gold would look great, but really it should have been silver.
Yeah. With dance, if I'm thinking about failure or things to learn from, because I agree, I think that is such a crucial part of any process, but the creative process. Performance failure doesn't come to mind first, because to me that's, I don't know, like in terms of like, if you mess up, to me, that's not a failure. If you mess up on stage, that's not a failure in my book. But if I think about like different processes I've been involved in, failure is a tough word. I don't think I would even use the word failure as much as like, I have learned maybe what I need in a process. Like there have been processes where I have not been taken care of as a dancer, or as a human, and kind of like, in a way that maybe if someone else is in that process, that's going to be their cup of tea. But for me, I think learning like, oh, that's my boundary, or like, oh, that's my edge, or this is what I need communication wise from someone. Like I definitely, I have a strong voice now and I did not used to. And so
Okay.
failure wise, I can tell you that like there's a lot of ways that people work that I will never be interested in doing again. Like, cause I have a really good thing going now with the folks that I work with. And I'm like, oh, it's
Sure.
clear communication. We're being paid for our time. It's being respected and valued. I don't work for free. And that's something that, well, it's a rough one in the,
that's one of the reoccurring themes in the art community, no matter what your art is being compensated fairly for your art, whether you're a painter or a dancer or a guitar player, or insert anything else, is finding how to appropriately value your art.
Yeah. And that's a complex thing too.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a good segue into your business.
It sure is. We didn't plan this segue.
No. So when how I first heard about you was because of your embroidery business. I need you to connect the dots for me.
Yeah.
I now that I've talked to you about dance and theater and choreography, and now we're going to talk about embroidery.
We sure are. Yeah.
How did you stitch this together for me?
Oh, I will stitch it together for you. I am not someone who relaxes well. If we've learned anything from this conversation so far, it's that like I hustle. I always have multiple jobs. I like free time. What is it? Free time?
Okay.
Who is she? I don't know her. And so this was, again, everything kind of harkens back to like 2017, 2016. I feel like a lot of things because embroidery started then as well.
Okay. So this wasn't something you learned as a kid.
No, nope. This was a like pick it up cold. I had some free time. Like it was in the fall. It was in like September. And I just didn't want to be on my phone. I was like, what can I do that's different? I've always been like crafty and, artsy, but I was like, embroidery is pretty cheap in terms of like, if I buy a hoop, some fabric and some thread and it doesn't go well, it's not like a huge loss. So, financially, like this is like a safe gamble to see if I like it. And so I like went on YouTube and like looked up a couple stitches, like how to do them. YouTube is great, a great learning tool for that. And
yes,
then like I became obsessed. This snowballed fast because I did a couple like patterns that I had bought on Etsy, like downloadable patterns. And I stitched those within a week. And my roommate at the time was like, oh my God, what? You've been sitting here for hours doing this. And I'm like, I know, I love it. Like, I love it. And so really from the start, I kind of just started, I wanted to create my own designs right away. And, I started with a couple of things I purchased to try it out. But, I made up a couple designs. I sketched them out and I started stitching them with no plan to like start a business. I was just like, this is giving me this is a hobby. This is a cute hobby. It's mine. It's no one else's. But then, friends of mine were like, oh, I would buy that from you. Or can I buy that? Or do you have it in this color? And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. So then, I think probably the following spring, so months later, I did my first market. And it was such a success.
Which market did you do?
I did I think it was the South Lake Union Farmers Market.
Okay.
I think it still goes by that name. But yeah, I paid for a booth, I set up my stuff, and like looking back to that, I'm like, oh my God, like I have made so many improvements and learned so many things, even about doing markets since then. But it was kind of like, I totally was going in with like, don't know what I'm doing. We'll see if people actually like want to buy this. Cause at the time I was like, why would someone give me their money for this? It was definitely like imposter syndrome. I was like, what? But there was enough support from people, like close people in my life, that I was like, oh, sure. Like, let's just see. And then it just kind of kept going. I really, I was enjoying making work and I was enjoying making new designs. And, like you definitely sell more product at a market than you do on Etsy. I mean, I love Etsy as a platform in terms of me not having to create the platform for myself, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't do much to promote your work. It's just kind of there, and you have to do your own work to direct people to
Right.
buy, But but that's how I started. It was a hobby, and then very fast, it was like, oh no, this is an obsession, and it snowballed. So,
All right.
yeah.
So when Mackenzie said, and Mackenzie is my daughter, and she's
Yeah.
typically the one that finds interesting people outside of my sphere, right?
Mhm.
Which is great. This is cool. She sends me this message,
Mhm.
"Hello, Chloe, embroidery," and I'm like, what?
You're like,
Embroidery?
okay, whatever.
And I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, tea towels that my grandmother used to make, and nothing,
Mhm.
I mean, and so I look it up, and almost the first thing I see is your
Uh-huh.
get shit done, and I just started laughing, and I'm
And
like, okay, I can relate
You're
to
like,
this
I can-
topic now.
well,
I
and
found a
that-
connection that I can relate to. It's like, okay,
That's the very first design that I made that was my own. So way back in the early embroidery journey, I mean, it's a lot more cleaned up now. When I stitch it, it's a lot more like clean. But at the time, that was actually the first one. I was like, oh, I want to make this. And I've been making that one since 2017. Like that's like, and it's, I have it, I have it in kit form that people can buy and stitch it for themselves. And I have like finished pieces that people can buy if they're like, I don't want to stitch it myself. So that one's the tried and true, the original.
that's the original,
one.
huh?
Yeah. So that's the
that's
one
funny
that
because
got you too.
yeah, well, it really did, because I mean, I know anybody that's entrepreneurial, I will have a connection with. Did you think you would be entrepreneurial? Or have you been I mean, you said you kind of hustle and you've got multiple jobs, but entrepreneurial, would that be a word that would describe you?
Yeah, I think now 100%. I think if you had asked me like, 5 years ago, I'd be like, no, probably not. But like now, not just embroidery, but looking at everything else, I'm like, oh yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but the embroidery, I mean, it's, business goes up and down. It's not consistent. Like I can't rely on a certain amount of money per month from it, which I wish, but it's become a form of income when I'm not in the show, or like it's kind of come in and helped support, what I'm doing. Like dance is always the top of the top for me in terms of where I'm putting my energy in my life. But the embroidery helps kind of to support that. And I like being my own boss. I really don't. I like kind of being in control of things. I mean, that's why I'm a teacher, right? I run the game. Like I run the room. I like being a choreographer. I like making the decisions, but I like obviously collaborating with my peers and, folks I work with. But embroidery is just another way I can like have a malleable set of things to help me just kind of like do what I want to do,
Oh, and I applaud that. So you mentioned farmers markets.
Yeah.
How well do you still do? Are you, well, once again, COVID, but
yeah.
the markets are coming back.
They are.
Are you anticipating taking your embroidery back to the markets?
Yeah. And like that first one was a farmer's market, and there are so many fabulous farmers markets around Seattle that have vendors, but I actually, I don't do a lot of the farmers markets, like weekly stuff, because embroidery is a time consuming thing, and I wouldn't be able to keep up product wise with that. But I do some different like makers markets around here.
Okay.
So I actually did a market back in September in Bothell. It was the Bothell Makers Market. It was the first one for Bothell, and it was amazing. The turnout was fabulous. It was like the last like 80-degree day that we had, and before we like really like kind of like settled into fall. But so I love doing those, because there's a whole community of small business owners and makers in town that like are dear friends of mine now, who I've met through these different makers markets. So I'll do like a couple or few a year usually. I can't do much more just because embroidery is not my full-time. I don't have any full-time job, but I think some makers that's what they do. And I think I think that's amazing, but that will never be all that I'm doing. So I can do a few a year, and then it's usually about it.
Well, I'm looking on your Etsy thing right now, and lungs.
Oh yeah. So I know I said the get shit done pieces were the first ones kind of that I made in my own creative journey, but the anatomy pieces are my favorite pieces to make. They're my best sellers. And I think it comes from dance. I just love the human body. I think it's like full of miracles, and it's just this like powerhouse of a machine. Like the body is so amazing. And so that's where, and I've always loved anatomy, and I took anatomy in college, and I'm like just incredibly fascinated by anatomy and physiology. But those pieces, I made the heart. I made a heart piece first with flowers, kind of spilling out of it. And it didn't sell for like a year and a half. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a little too weird for people. And I think I made a couple. Maybe I made the heart, and then I made the lungs next, and then the brain after that. But then suddenly, people just started buying them, and requesting them for custom orders and custom work. And so I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I didn't just decide to ditch the idea. It just needed some time to I think just exist. But now it's the piece that is the most in demand from folks. But I love those pieces. And I've done quite a few of them now, in a very wide range when it comes to custom orders, the things that people request, very tender. I have a lot of stories that people share that a piece like that kind of touches in them. And
so you're doing custom work for people then?
Yeah.
All right.
I always have, but it definitely has picked up more in the past couple of years, just because I've had a little more time to take on more. But I've done everything from custom, I don't know, I did 10 handkerchiefs for someone's bridal party. I embroidered initials and florals. And then, but most of my custom work is offshoots of work I already make, if that makes sense. People aren't here's this thing and this idea, can you design it and make it? And it's nothing like what you do. It's definitely, I don't really take that on. I usually it's related to things that already exist in my work.
I'm looking at Winter Floral, and it's a digital PDF.
Yeah.
So in layman's terms, that's a pattern for somebody to use?
Okay. Yeah, I launched the patterns, I guess, oh my God. So we currently find ourselves in 2022. So I launched those in the winter of 2020. So my kits and patterns, it'd been a request for a couple of years from customers, and I was like, oh my God, I don't have time to figure that out. And then I had some time, so I buckled down and I designed some really beautiful stitch guides. And so I have full kits that people can buy, and then those digital PDFs I think are amazing because you can just download it. It takes you through step by step for the whole pattern. It takes you through their illustrations, pictures, all this stuff. If someone has,
so it's
supplies.
Not just a piece of, I'll say paper, but it's digital. But it's not just the pattern. It's actually
22 pages of yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I kind of just go through. I wish I don't have it because it's that many pages. That's why I keep it a digital, unless someone can request a physical copy. If it just does not work to have it digital, but I'm trying to think if I even have one. But yeah, I just kind of take someone through as if they know nothing at all. I'm assuming they know nothing about embroidery. So I talk about color theory and how I choose my colors. I talk about, here's the sizes of needles, or here's how just kind of the beginning, all the fundamental embroidery things that I have learned, I've kind of taught myself. So none of it is traditional. I probably do a lot of things that maybe people who are deeply rooted in tradition of the art of embroidery would be oh, you never knot your thread, or don't knot your thread. I knot my thread all the time. That's how I start when I stitch, but I know you're not supposed to do that. But anyway, I do a lot of things that maybe because I taught myself maybe a little unconventional, but I kind of take people through all of those basics and then take them into the pattern. So Yeah. It's very
So
comprehensive.
if I'm looking at, well, let's just go back to your get shit done, just because I like saying that.
Yep.
uh,
I gotta respect
so if,
it. I mean, yeah, get shit done.
So if I look at this, the kit comes with everything I need to make the project.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Including basically the manual that walks me through.
Yeah, and I do email that. Like if someone ordered a kit from me, you know, I would ship that out to them, and they open the box and they have a hoop that already has the fabric stretched and has the pattern printed on the fabric. They have 2 needles, they have the thread, all the stuff, and then they would have emailed to them that digital. Yeah. Right. And I mean, you know, if it were me, like if I would not want to receive a 20-page PDF like in a box, but I would maybe select pages to print out because I do like physical things. But but I think the PDF has worked for folks. So yeah, the PDF then would come in digital format, and then you'd have your physical supplies.
All right, humor me.
Yeah.
I have the box sitting here at my desk. I don't, but humor me. I open it up. I don't know what I'm doing. How long is this project going to take me?
Yeah. And we're talking get shit done. We're talking that piece.
We're talking get shit done.
Yeah. Great. So that piece only uses like 3 different stitches, right? It looks pretty dense, but I tell people that's a beginner piece. Because it's a lot of repetition. I tell people you get a lot of practice time with these stitches. So I would say that piece, it takes me about 2 hours start to finish, or 2.5 to stitch. I think if someone was a beginner, it could take up to 6 hours, depending on how quick they picked it up. Just because there's a lot of French knots in that, and I love French knots. Some people really hate French knots, you know, and they're difficult. But I mean, I don't imagine longer than 6 hours, but it could be like, you know, you pick it up.
It's a day. It's a weekend project. I could sit around. I think
it's a weekend project. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And you know, but some folks, they want to do a couple stitches, put it down, and like come back to it, like, you know, in 10 days, like, and that, whereas like some people want to sit down and they just like want to knock it out and finish it. But I would predict for a beginner, maybe 5-6 hours, or quicker. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the embroidery on the lettering.
Yes. Yeah.
Walk me through, because it's not, well, they look like, you said French knots, but they look like little flowers. I mean,
all the little, yeah.
How does one do that?
The little knots.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is a podcast, so no visuals. I mean, it's really just a matter of, you know, you have your needle, your thread is ready, and to create that knot, I mean, essentially you're just wrapping the thread around that needle, kind of holding it there and putting it down through the thread and pulling it on through. Like it just kind of creates that surface knot. But you're just kind of, wrapping around and pulling it through. Many people would be upset at how simply I just described that, because it's like some people really do not like these knots. I use them a lot, so I am not one of those people, but yeah.
Well, they add dimension and color in little
that texture. Oh, yeah, it's nice.
It's very cool. Versus the get and done looks.
Yeah, it's just like a split stitch. Just there it is. Yeah.
What's next for you with the embroidery? What do you see yourself doing?
Yeah, it's honestly like I'm definitely in a low period of like business is slow right now. I mean, post holidays, any person who sells things knows that this is always a weird time of year.
Absolutely a weird time, yes.
You know, and that's like, you just have to remember, like, this is not about the quality of the work or if people hate your work now. It's like, it's literally, this is just what it is every year. But I think, I mean, for me, like my goal is definitely still like getting my kits more traction. They've been a hit, but I want that to grow more, because from a business side of things, that would continue to help support me, because those don't take as much time for me to make as opposed to a finished piece. And I think they're a lot more accessible for folks than
Right.
the price of a finished piece, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I like making really big pieces too, that take me, like, I have a piece sitting behind me that, I mean, it's not done yet. And I started it, I guess maybe fall of 2020. Like, and I'm just kind of, there are some pieces I just like taking my time with, and they're big, and I'll sell
Mm-hmm.
them at some point. But I think goal wise, like, I want to keep reminding myself to put time into those pieces, even though they don't turn a profit quickly, right? That's more the creative side of like trying to figure out like, oh, where does my creative voice want to go right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly. I feel like it wants to go somewhere. So while I'm figuring that out, I think kits and getting back into teaching classes too. I've got a class coming up, which I'm psyched about. So yeah, classes I teach as well.
And this class that you're teaching,
Mm-hmm.
this episode will go live right before it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to impact your registration. Sorry, you're not going to sell out because of this podcast.
I think we're almost full, like, which is awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
So February 12th. So you're actually teaching in person.
We're teaching in person. Yeah. Masks required, all the things to keep everyone safe. But yeah, I haven't taught a class since, before all of this. And I do really, really love teaching. So we are actually going to stitch the Get Shit Done piece that was requested by the folks who are bringing me on board for this one. And,
okay. So how big is this class? How big is this class going to be?
I think it's going to be about 20 people. 20 people. So,
okay.
You pay, and all class structures are a little bit different depending on where you are, but, everyone kind of paid for a ticket, and that ticket means they get to walk into the room and they have all the supplies there for them, and they get to take those supplies home, and it's a 3-hour class. So, some folks will probably make a lot of progress, and some folks might want to like stitch a little bit and like use that time to like, you're stitching with people, so
right.
You're hanging out. It's a social thing as well. So, but yeah, so we'll stitch that piece. And I think I have 2 options that people can choose from. And then we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm excited. I hope people are excited. I think they are. Yeah.
Well, I think actually the idea of people, I think if for a certain segment, I just got done a little while ago saying I didn't want to go to a concert.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people are really wanting to get out, really wanting to reconnect in person with people.
Yeah. And I take that for granted because I've been teaching through the whole pandemic, and even when I was all on virtual and my kids were at home, like I was still going to the dance studio to teach in an empty studio to a camera. Like, I think I take for granted that I haven't just been at home, or like I just was on tour for, dancing. Like, I have been around a lot of people, but that has not been everyone's experience. So like coming to an embroidery class is thrilling, to like go walk into a room, be like, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to be with some people, and it's going to be great.
Now, let's be fair.
Yeah.
Did you ever think in your life that you would say going to an embroidery class was thrilling? I mean, come on.
Probably not.
That's
no.
not thrilling in an embroidery. I tease, but thrilling and embroidery don't seem like they go together.
No, I know. I use the word thrilling. I mean, I'm in a moment of my life where I'm like, so many things feel so thrilling, and it's again,
awesome.
It's the context of the life that we're currently in. This chapter. But things are thrilling. It's like, right, when you get to do something with people, if we're going to boil it down, it's really when you get to do something with people. To me, that's thrilling. Now, to some people, that might not be thrilling. Like staying at home, like having alone time, can also be equally thrilling. But I do love, community and people.
All right,
thrilling, embroidery, thrilling.
So we're going to ask you some of my stock questions.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Are you a fan of coffee?
I sure am. Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's a good answer, because otherwise I would have just hung up on you after all this time.
Hung up, delete this episode.
Deleted it. This show did not exist. What's your coffee beverage of choice? Are you a latte person, black coffee person?
Yeah. It depends on what time of the day you're catching me. First cup of coffee of the day is black coffee. Or like a little bit of cream, but like just give me like drip coffee, make it at home, done. But
Okay.
my second coffee of the day, like usually around like 1 or 2, I don't indulge.
AM? Because that's, I mean, second at one? What?
1 or 2 in the afternoon.
Oh my
We,
gosh.
like I don't indulge every day because it adds up, but a cappuccino, or I do love a latte. But let me tell you, the place down the street from me, they make a cardamom latte, and that is my ultimate treat. I love cardamom, and it's a good latte. So that's my like
And what's
treat.
what's what's the name of the place?
It's Madison Kitchen.
Madison Kitchen.
Madison
Okay.
Kitchen down here in Madison Park. It's a lovely little spot. One of my favorites. The sweetest people and like amazing selection of baked goods, which I have a big sweet tooth. So give me my coffee, give me a scone. I'm happy.
You're in your happy
Oh
place.
yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. All right. Well, when you're not dancing, when you're
Hmm.
not teaching, when you're not stitching, what do you like to do for fun?
It's always a funny question because I'm like, oh God, what do I do? Because all those things to me are fun. Everything I do, all
Yes.
my work things are fun, and I'm very thankful for that. I mean, honestly, like I have a really sweet, scruffy dog, and we like going on walks. We like
Hmm.
snuggling. We're snuggles all the time. But yeah, doing that or going on walks. Honestly, like I do like being outside.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, other than that, like trying to see friends. It's like that one's hard for me. I'm like, oh, right, prioritizing like just hanging out with people and you're not working. like, um, but yeah, I mean, seeing my loved ones and like my family's all around here. So family time and my dog, those are the outside of work.
that's that's the outside of work stuff. All right.
Hmm.
Where can people find out more about your dance? Let's start with that one.
Yeah, they can find more. So my Instagram is HelloChloeMarie, and that's kind of where all my dance stuff goes in terms of
All
like
right.
show stuff and whatever. And then my website, which is chloealbin.com. So
Okay.
if a show comes up, I'll update it on the event page on there. But yeah, those are
All
the two
right.
places. Oh yeah.
What about embroidery?
Embroidery is definitely so similar. Instagram handle, hello Chloe Marie dot embroidery. So if you type in hello Chloe Marie on Instagram, you will like both of my two options will pop up at the top.
Okay.
Intentionally, very easy to find in that way. So yeah, all my embroidery is there, and through there, you can search my shop on Etsy at hello Chloe Marie on Etsy.
Okay.
Um,
And
and
if you
that
do any markets, if you do
mhm.
markets, where do you announce those at?
If I do markets, I announce them. I put that information on my Instagram page. I also have a mailing list that I
Okay.
send out every couple months or like whenever I have something coming up. And folks can sign up for that. There's a link in on my Instagram again in the bio. There's a link to sign up for that. But yeah, that's usually where the info comes out. Those are some good emails. Like I don't have time to like send out like emails with just like kind of nothing, just like to annoy you. It's really like here's the information, here's when it's happening. Hope to see you there. So that's definitely where people can keep up with me. But Instagram if they don't want to get emails from me.
All right.
Yeah.
To wrap this up,
Mm-hmm.
what didn't we talk about that we should have? Is
I think you did a good job of like looking at like, okay, who is this? Who is this person? What is she doing? We covered all the main stuff, like I mean, I could talk like about dance forever. I'm like, we barely talked about it. I'm like, oh, that's because there's so much to talk about.
well, let's
Yeah,
okay. Well, let me ask you this question.
yeah.
Share something with us about dance that it would not be readily known by people who are dance enthusiasts. How's that? I know nothing about
Mm.
dance, so you could make this up and I'll go, oh, cool.
I'm like
But
wonderful.
yeah, that's fascinating. But share something about dance that's a little bit, off the beaten path, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, specifically, and this, I guess, is kind of turns into a plug as well of like work that I'm doing. Again, like going to so I work with drag queens, like pretty
Mm-hmm.
famous drag queens, and that maybe people wouldn't think is like where a
Huh.
professional dancer might find themselves. But
Okay.
oh my goodness, I would say drag, drag and dance are just like and the folks that I work for specifically are so collaborative and really want to use dance to elevate, not just like have dancers behind them, step touching, but like fully involved in the production and like, like I'm in a movie that's you can watch on Hulu or Amazon. It's like on all the platforms, and that was because
wait, stop.
I know we didn't even touch that.
What? Okay, wait.
We're not done. No, buckle up, folks.
Yeah, we're gonna land this plane, but it might be a bumpy ride.
It might be a bumpy ride. Yeah.
The movie. What? Tell me more.
The movie we made in the summer of 2020. It's a holiday movie that came out in kind of holiday time 2020. It's called the Jinx and DeLa Holiday Special. And initially it was Hulu. You could only watch it on Hulu, but I think now you can watch it on, or I say for sure, you can watch it on Apple TV and Amazon Prime and whatever else. Most streaming platforms, not Netflix. It's not on Netflix because we're on Hulu. But yeah, so that movie, was written and produced by BenDeLaCremes, who I work for with Gaylord Manor, which we talked about earlier, and Jinx Monsoon is the other drag queen in it. And they, the movie, I got to pull in, like I kind of got to like make the cast with Ben and pull in dancers. I was the dance director on that, and a lot of the choreography is very collaborative. Like we kind of all walk into a room and we all everyone's ideas are like brought in, and we kind of sift through, figure out, okay, what's going to work. But I get to kind of like help facilitate that in a big way. And I dance in the movie as well. But I would say for people who aren't super involved in dance, like I would say, check out that movie. And like, if that's your first drag experience, it's an amazing one to have. Like the work that we're doing is like, I think it really pushes the boundaries of like what drag is and what dance is and how those two can work together and like elevate each other. So that's kind of, that's where my heart lies, but check out that movie. Holidays in the holidays outside of holiday time, just dive in, watch a holiday show in February.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. The drag scene in Seattle.
It's hopping.
How? Okay.
It's a special city for drag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elaborate.
There's a lot going on. I feel like I don't even know all the queens that are working it out, every weekend. I know quite a few of them, and I'll go and see shows. Like there are shows, so many days of the week, even right now, that you can find. And, a lot of drag performers did the whole digital thing, and they did it so well. I think drag and burlesque performers really buckled in and figured out how to do a digital show very well. This town, the range of drag that, I think maybe when people think about drag, they think about going to a drag brunch and, having some mimosas and watching some like people lip sync or something. But I think it's very important to say that like it's so much, like sometimes it can be that, and that is amazing. And sometimes it can be a much different experience. Sometimes it can be, a full production of like that's scripted and there's texture. It's like I think drag performers are all people who have a talent that drag then is kind of lifting up, right? Like you have folks that write, you have folks that sing, you have folks that do whatever, but then drag kind of, I think for a lot of folks go with that. So there's a lot of different versions of what you might see on a drag stage. Comedy, singing, acting, whatever. And that's exciting. It's exciting.
What else did you see? We asked that question and we covered something we hadn't touched on. What else?
We're back to like, what else did we not cover?
Yeah. What else didn't we cover?
I can't think of, we really covered a lot, and hopefully, we've been talking for a while. Hopefully this is still interesting to people. Cause I'm like, I live in my own bubble, and I'm like, I was just saying to my partner, I'm like, why would someone like want to interview me? Like, but then I have to remember, like, I do a lot of things that are maybe, it's my own little mix of things that are very different from, my neighbor or whatever. So
Well, in our purpose on the show is to, help showcase sounds grandiose, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Shine a light sounds a little more optimistic, but there's so many people across the state that are doing some amazing things that they don't necessarily, just because you're not covered in, say, insert name of big, like Seattle Times,
Right.
or doesn't mean that somebody's not doing some amazing, interesting things. And I get to sit here and have these conversations with people, and selfishly, I'm the one who picks the guests. I mean, I get input, but I'm ultimately I'm the one. And so I get to have the conversations, and I'm learning something with every single guest that we talk to. I love to hear people's stories, even if they're not a path that I would necessarily want to go on. Right. I've talked to a lot of, for example, people that like to climb mountains. My stairs upstairs, that's the biggest journey. I need a Sherpa to help me go up the stairs. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not going to go climb Rainier. I think it's cool that you want to. I'm not going to follow you. Just like you'll never see me dance. That's just not going to be my thing.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that it's not interesting, and that if we can help provide us some exposure, and who knows, maybe somebody wants to pick up embroidery now.
Yeah. Come to me. Yeah.
There you go. See? Yeah. So, I just want to thank you for taking time today and sharing your journey and your story with us. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot.
So fun. This is so fun.
And, well, thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you again for having me.
Of course.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.